Hi, and welcome to part 9 of chapter 3. And in this section, we're going to go over records and reports. So, every time you go out on a call, you need to make sure that you write a report. It doesn't matter on what it is. If you are summoned to an emergency scene, you need to write some type of report on it. Even if there's no patient there, you need to write a report stating, no patient found. Because 2 years later, the only thing you're going to have is your documentation to help you remember in a court of law. So make sure you write a report on every patient. It's an important safeguard against any legal complications, and it helps you remember factors years later if you're ever questioned and asked to come testify in court. The court's perception of records is if it wasn't recorded, it didn't happen. So make sure you write down, you record everything. So vital signs, you need to make sure when you take your vital signs, you list your times and you report them. If you check pupils, you need to make sure you document that you check pupils. If you check decap BTLS on the left arm, you need to make sure you document that. Anything that's not there did not happen. So another thing too is when you're writing your reports, you need to make sure that your report is done neatly and done professionally. So if you have like a lot of spelling errors, if it's all garbled up and nothing flows in a coherent manner, the courts are going to look at that as that you may not be up to par on what you're doing. So it can go to show that maybe you're not as experienced or maybe you're not as qualified as you claim to be. So you want to make sure that your report reflects the professional that you are. So most of the states have reporting obligations where we have to report abuse of children, abuse of older people, domestic violence, injury during the commission of a felony, and drug-related injuries. So most of the time we're going to have PD en route on these. Remember, you still have HIPAA issues, but that doesn't mean that you can't report child abuse, because we are required to report abuse. And it's best to report it. Make sure you follow your organization's policy on reporting so that the proper people are notified. So other reporting obligations, childbirth outside the licensed medical facility, which you would be transporting anyway, rape, animal bites, and certain communicable diseases. These are some mandatory things that we report. And the way you report it is by documenting it in your PCR and ensuring that you give a good patient report whenever you turn care over to the nurses. And if you need to, you want to alert your supervisor as well. But you want to go back and you want to follow your specific region or your organization's standards on this, on who you report things to, because some organizations will have you report abuse stuff to the supervisor, and you may have some paperwork you need to fill out so that it is followed through on. So notify dispatch immediately if you believe a crime was committed at the scene, because if you believe there's a crime committed, you need someone there to protect you. And if you're in that situation, you want to make sure that you have a heightened sense of awareness of what's going on around you. If you are in the middle of a crime scene, you need to provide care to the patient, but do not disturb the scene more than necessary. And if you do disturb the scene, please try and make sure you let the authorities or law enforcement or whoever know what you did so that they can use that to put the pieces together while they're doing their investigation. So if they know you moved something, well, then they can deduct that wasn't done by the criminal or whatever. If there's any chance at saving the patient, attempt resuscitation, the rule is patient's life comes first. It doesn't matter if they were the perpetrator or what happened, that patient's life comes first. It's our job to provide care to the patient regardless of the circumstances. So we're not going to withhold any resuscitative efforts at all just because we want to try to preserve evidence. If death is obvious, cover the body and prevent its disturbance. Or make sure you follow your local protocol or procedures on that, because I've worked some places where they did not want you to cover the body and some places did. So just make sure you follow your local procedure on that. But the main thing is you want to prevent any disturbance from happening to it if you're there. Hopefully law enforcement will be there pretty quickly, if not already, but if you are there and you find yourself in the situation, just make sure you try and prevent things from being disturbed. Alright, so that's it on this section for mandatory reporting. Our next section is going to cover signs of death and organ donation and medical ID. So if you have any questions, please make sure you let me know. If not, we'll see you on the next section.